Want to give a shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for all of the continued support. And I am done. Okay, so I just finished up reading The Last Light. This is book 5 of the Wandering Inn series by 𝗨𝐲𝐴, and I want to give you my unedited thoughts upon finishing this book, which was just right now. So I am in love with this book. This was incredible, and for me, it's the best Wandering Inn book that I've read. And this is a chonker. This is about 1,800 pages. You heard that right. And it took a really long time for me to read. But I'm in love with virtually every single thing that was in this book. And, you know, this is book 5 of the ebook. But it's technically the beginning of volume 4. So this is a web serial that's ongoing, and it's split up into volumes, but the volumes are so huge that it's split up into individual books, and the books, as we get further along, will comprise like many different books involved in each volume. For example, the first 2 books were the first 2 volumes, but the third book was 2 volumes. And I think I'm getting that right in all my volumes, but it gets kind of mixed up. And I think as it goes further along, I'm going to get even more mixed up. But as of today, I'm about 1/6 of the way caught up with this series. But I will never catch up, I don't think, unless the series finishes, because I am falling behind, not catching up. And this is because of the insanely rapid pace that this author, 𝗨𝐲𝐴, puts out this content. It comes out, I believe, twice a week for most of the weeks of the year, and the chapters are enormous. I'm a relatively quick reader, but the chapters are like 45 minutes to an hour long, and that's twice a week. It's an absolutely absurd pace. And so, yeah, will I ever catch up? We'll see. When the series finishes, eventually I will, but yeah, it's not happening any time soon. Yeah, I'm amazed that this is the best of the 5 books, especially after what I found to be a disappointing previous book in book 4. And by disappointing, I mean it was very good, but it's the only one that I did not rate a 5. I gave it a 4. And I gave it a 4 for a number of reasons. You can watch that video, hit the link up above if you want to watch that. But I just didn't like some of the storylines. Now, essentially what's going on here, for those of you that I have not convinced yet to read The Wandering Inn, this is an epic fantasy of monumental proportions. But it's also like a mix of like slice of life. It's got some horror elements to it. It's a lit RPG, so think like video game aspects where characters are leveling up and they have classes on this enormously grand scale. And by this time in the series, we are covering many different point of views. I mean, I didn't write it down, but I feel like there were probably 6 or 7 different point of views that we got in this story. Now, as a fan of epic fantasy, where multi-POVs are the norm, I really appreciate this. Now, in the first book, I think it was just 2 POVs. I think, in fact, I'm quite confident on that. And while I love the book, this is just getting to such that really huge epic feeling that you get when you read these, you know, Game of Thrones types books, you know, the Stormlight Archive type books, where you get a lot of different perspectives. Now, while I like these, you know, main 2 characters that started in the first book, they're turning out to not be the main characters. Now, a lot of the things revolve around them, but we're getting just as much content on these other characters as we are these main characters. And I love that, because while I do enjoy the main 2 characters, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute, more than anything, I love these side characters. Now, early on in the series, what happened was you would get a chapter here and there of these side characters, but now what you're getting is essentially like mini books, and not even mini, these like full-sized books of 300 to 400 pages per character before we move on to the next one. And that's just amazing. I love huge books, and for an 1,800-page book to be able to do that is just amazing. So the more that we focus on these side characters, the happier that I am. And with so much focus, that's why I am considering this as one of the best books that I've ever read. Now, so I want to keep this spoiler-free, even though I'm in this weird spot now where I feel like a lot of people watching these videos are veterans of The Wandering Inn, because I feel like I'm like the only booktuber that is covering The Wandering Inn. I do not understand that. I feel like there's this bias against these web serials which is unfair in this case. Maybe it's fair in other cases. But the only two web serials that I've ever read, this one and what's the one with the time-traveling Mother of Learning, I think are wonderful. So people need to get over that bias and check this out, because the following that The Wandering has is enormous. It's just a more niche audience that really kind of just reads The Wandering in. I mean, their fan base is rabid. I mean, I go on to the Discord channel, and it is thriving. If you look at 𝐼𝑒𝐻𝐴, the author, who is this mysterious person that nobody knows who they are, keeps their identity completely anonymous, has like one of the largest Patreon accounts that exists for a writer. So the fan base is huge, but yeah, very in that still kind of like cult category. It's really special. So I feel like that's who a lot of the viewership is on these videos, but I also don't want to spoil things for those that are watching this and intrigued, because every time I put out one of these videos, I get a lot of people that say, Matt, you've convinced me, I'm going to dive in. And nearly every time that happens, the person writes back to me later on and they say, Matt, I'm obsessed. One, I hate you because I can't stop reading this, and two, thank you. So I want to still keep those people in mind. So I'm going to kind of blend the two. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I am going to talk a little bit to those vets now, while keeping things a little vague. So at the beginning of this book, we got more king chapters, and each of these chapters have like a letter before them. So you'll see like K 1.02 means it's like the second, I think this is how it works, but like the second chapter of King. But it's really weird to look at the chapter listing, and it can be very confusing if you're not used to it. But we got this King character. Now, it turns out that this King character is not very well liked. When I talk to people about this series, they usually say like, oh yeah, I hate the King chapters. I can't get enough of them. Now, I don't understand why, but I just love this character. It's wonderful. And so by more King chapters, I mean, we got like a normal size 300-ish page book of this King stuff, and it was awesome. Now, I already loved the King character. I've been intrigued by it, but this just took it to a new level, because this character was essentially like the most terrifying being in the world at one point, and was on his way to conquer like the entire world, but failed and then went into hiding. But now he's back, building up his army again, and that was kind of the premise that was established. And so you felt like there was kind of this black and white feeling to this character, where this character was all black. But that's not the case. As you learn more about this character, there's actually a lot of depth to this character, which I thought was wonderful. And I just can't wait to go back to this character and get more and more. And I'm left scratching my head on what I'm reading that other people aren't. And what I like about this character that other people don't. But yeah, love everything about it. We got a lot of doctor chapters, and the doctor chapters are special. Now, I get why this is a fan favorite. It's just a heroic story that I didn't know where it was going in this one, because it starts out and it doesn't feel like doctor chapters, but they are. And it just follows this doctor who is, all of the main characters in this story are regular human beings in Earth. They get transported to this mythical world. They don't know what they're doing, but they find that they can kind of level up faster than the people that live there. So there's this one character who I think was like I don't know if they were actually a doctor or like a nurse or like a junior doctor, that now gets thrust in this world and takes the doctor class and is leveling that up. And everybody doesn't really understand what that is or why they would want that. But they become immensely helpful, as you would imagine, to militaries. So there's this whole epic's quest, or not quest, but this tale about this doctor who wants to help everybody in kind of a Red Cross kind of way, by not picking a side between the battle and just wanting to help people. And it's fascinating. We got more Emperor chapters. Another character that apparently is not well loved, but I love. This character who wants to be an emperor, believes they're an emperor in their heart, and they wake up and they find out that they have been designated with the emperor class, even though they don't really have what you would think of as a normal-sized empire. They kind of rule over like a house at the beginning, and it kind of expands a little bit from there. But this character is blind. I've never read a point of view from a blind character before. It's extremely well done, and I just love everything about it. We got more dungeon crawling chapters. I love the dungeon crawling chapters. They don't always follow the same kind of characters, but there are these dungeons that are filled with monsters. and just traditional. You feel like you're playing like a Diablo game. It's awesome. Now, the main two characters. We got more 𝐿 and 𝐼𝑬𝐿 chapters, the main, and I say main, but I don't know if they're the main characters anymore. And yeah, it was the best of the 𝐿 and 𝐼𝑬𝐿 chapters that I've read so far. And I find myself not loving these characters as much as everybody else does. I like them, but don't love them. But I found myself loving 𝐼𝑬𝐿 by the end of this, because her tale was maybe the best thing that I've read in The Wandering Inn. And this character went from my least favorite to one of my most favorite in the span of a couple hundred pages. Now, I don't want to ruin anything, but the ending of this book that involved this character was epic. It was an enormous scale, fun. My heart was racing, and I couldn't put it down during her chapters. And yeah, the finale to this was wonderful. So I found that the only weak part of this story, and the only criticism that I will say, is there is a certain character. I don't even want to say who it is, because I feel like that might ruin something for somebody. And the story is about this character finding religion and almost kind of trying to convert other people to this religion. Now, while I'm not a very religious person myself, I do love a lot of fantasy books that have religion as a core theme to the story. But in this one, it just kind of felt weak here. It just didn't feel like the quality of some of the other stories. But in an 1,800-page book, to have a couple hundred pages of the book be a little less than what I was expecting is a major accomplishment in terms of a positive thing. So overall, I was blown away by this story. I cannot wait for this story to continue. And if you are one of the many people who are watching this being like, Matt, I wish you would just talk spoilers. Just do it. I want to talk spoilers with you. It's just not what I do on this channel. So come to my Discord channel, or just go to the Wandering Inn Discord channel and tag me. I'd love to talk to you about things and tell you my unedited thoughts without, having to restrict myself at all, and just chat with you all about it. So I will leave it off there. I will tease a little bit, though, that I do have some very, very special Wandering Inn content coming soon that I cannot disclose right now yet. But hopefully in the very near future, you're going to hear something, especially if you're a big Wandering Inn fan already, you're not going to want to miss the content that I have coming for you in the near future. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for watching. Go read this story. Start from the beginning. And I just have to tell you this. I've heard the one thing I hear from people about why they don't want to start this story is because it feels overwhelming. That's true. It does feel overwhelming. It's the largest fantasy story of all time, and the way that it expands is daunting. But don't be worried about that kind of thing. Read the story for what it is. Journey before destination. Enjoy the journey. You never have to get to the end if you don't want to. Because if I stopped right now, only getting 1/6 of the current story, I would be very satisfied. And so keep that in mind, and not just about this story. Keep that in mind in general about fantasy books. They don't have to be done for you to start them. If they're long, that's fine. If you just read a couple books, that's fine. Just enjoy what they have to offer. And especially in this case, when you have this web serial format where every chapter feels like its own self-contained story, it's worth it. At least read the first book or two. I know that's a huge commitment, but you'll enjoy it. I almost guarantee it. Most people will, unless the only kind of person I feel like wouldn't enjoy this story is somebody that's really into like high level, super philosophical type of fantasy. They're only into stuff like Malazan. Now, I happen to love Malazan. It's my favorite series. So clearly there is a bridge between these two that you can meet. But if you're really like a highbrow reader and, maybe you wouldn't like this. But for everybody else, go do it. And it's free on their website. Check out thewanderininn.com. Every single thing that's put out is free. I happen to like to pay $5 for a couple thousand pages to get it on Kindle because I like the convenience of it. But you don't have to do that. Just read it on your computer or your phone. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all of my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Anna G, Brian, CJ, Darren, Jonathan, My Book is Lit, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Anna, Andra, Angelo, Ben, Blair, Brock, Evan, Jen B, Harry B, Jamie, Jeff Pixler, Maria, Michael Sugarman, Sky, TW57, 𝗏𝐞, and Zion.